Welcome to the Republican Professor this afternoon for me in California, and actually on the East Coast as well, where our guest is from. We have Heather Allen. Thanks for being here,
Hi,
Heather.
thank you. Thank you for having me.
Heather, I've followed you on Instagram for a while now. I can't remember exactly for how long, but long enough to be impressed with your knowledge base and your passion and confidence on the subject of women and firearms, women in the Second Amendment. So thanks for being here.
Thanks again for having me.
So, how did you get interested in firearms? Let's just get right to it.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Southern California, where I feel like it was pretty typical. Like my dad had a gun, but it was like, it's under the bed, don't touch it. It's in the closet, don't touch it. He never taught me anything. And then I was more interested in like surfing and the beach and didn't really think too much about firearms until I met my husband, Tyler, 16 years ago. He was in the Navy, like Navy Special Warfare,
Yeah.
and joined the LA County Sheriff's Department. So shooting was important to him, and sometimes he'd be gone with the Navy Reserves for weeks at a time. And he was like, "When I'm gone, you need to learn, you need to know how to use this." So he taught me. I got really into it. Then in I think it was 2017, I started working for the California Rifle Pistol Association, where I got really into the Second Amendment, gun rights, and just constitutional rights altogether.
Cool. Your husband's a SEAL?
No, he was in SWIC,
Oh
so
yeah.
Special Warfare Combat.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. SWIC. SWIC's big deal. That's awesome.
Yeah.
SWIC is, I'm sorry, I interrupted you when you were saying what SWIC was. I got so excited when I heard it. Go ahead.
It,
So say what it is.
yeah, Special Warfare Combat Crewmen in the Navy.
Yeah. SWCC.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. SWIC. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
They're the ones that go in there and lay down a big can of whoop ass as they get the SEALs out,
Yep.
or usually,
Yeah.
or whatever the case may be.
Important job.
Very important job. Are you kidding me? Huge. Well, thank him for his service. I'm a Navy veteran as well, so I'm a big fan.
Nice.
I'm
My
a
dad
big fan.
too. So it's all in the
Oh, your
family.
dad was in the Navy?
He was. Yeah.
What'd your dad do?
He he flew planes in Florida, but
Oh,
yeah, it wasn't. He wasn't in the Navy when I was growing up, so it was before he met my mom.
okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, CRPA.
Yep.
I know that organization. We've had Chuck Michelle on. I don't know if
As
you know who
well.
Chuck is. Do you know who
Great.
Chuck is?
Good old Chuck.
Yeah. Uh,
Very intense.
CPRA is based. It is it is that their headquarters there in Fullerton?
Fullerton. It is. Yeah.
That's so funny
Mhm.
because I moved to Fullerton about 8 years ago, and I never knew that. I never knew that's where they were, and then I was just kind of just randomly driving around, and I saw. Actually, I'll just say, I was going to a therapist. I was
Okay.
going to an individual therapist, and her office was right next to the California Rifle and Pistol Association office. And I joked because some days I felt just as I felt just as good seeing the CRPA office as I did going into therapy. I was just so happy because that was when the things are starting to ramp up and get really crazy, like with Gunmageddon and stuff. And I was
Oh
always
yeah.
happy to see that. So I would
2016.
go in there. Yeah, I would go in there and pay by check. And they were like, you can do that online. And I was like, I'll just write you a check.
I always appreciated when people would come in, could put a face to the name,
Yeah.
talk. Yeah.
Yeah, especially the last couple of years. The last couple of years have been really crazy, I think. Just like it's kind of made people have an excuse not to do things in person. And I see that on the campuses a lot. So,
Mhm.
okay. So you grew up surfing
Yes.
and you didn't take a gun surfing? Is that what I'm saying?
That would be
Okay.
like the trifecta. If I could do surfing, gun, horseback riding at the same time, that would be ultimate goals right there.
You grew up with horses?
A little bit, but when we moved to North Carolina, I was able to buy my own. So I've had it for almost 1 year now. It's been
Oh,
an
how
amazing
cool.
experience. Yeah.
I don't know anything about horses besides each horse is 1 horsepower. That's the only thing I know. I like looking at them. I like them, but I couldn't tell you that's an Arabian or that's a, whatever, stallion or whatever. So I'm going to be pretty boring on that. But so how old were you how serious are you about the Second Amendment, Heather?
I feel like I'm as serious as you can get. That's pretty, like when it comes to voting, I
Scale
learned
of
a
1 to 10. You're an 11.
off the charts. Yeah, 10 plus. But yeah, I learned a lot from Rick Travis at the CRPA. He's the director, and he would say, I don't care if it's your local dog catcher who's running in your local election, you need to talk to them and see what they, if they support what you support. Because there's a 99% chance they're not going to stay at local dog catcher. They're going to move up to maybe county commissioner's office or become a state senator or local, or United States senator. So um, that's what I've done, even with like local school board races. The last time I vetted one, he saw my necklace and he was like, just so you know, I support the Second Amendment. I was like, okay, that was going to be my first question. So
Yeah. So how old were you when that first came on your radar?
it's when I guess it kind of sparked when my husband would go away for weeks at a time and I had the firearm on me and I just kind of knew like, okay, I'm my own first responder. Kind of knew at that time in Southern California, it's going to be a little while. If an emergency were to happen and I call the police, it's going to take some time for them to get there. But then in 2017, working for the California Rifle Pistol Association, I really realized especially living in California, once you lose a right, it is extremely hard, if not impossible, to get that right back. For example, just owning a 10 round magazine, the magazine ban, if you follow Duncan versus Becerra, it's been going on for years and years. And I moved to North Carolina. My first week, I picked up a 30 round magazine for 24 bucks and just skipped out of the gun shop. Like, kind of looked around. I was like, that's it. That's all I had to do is give him my money. And that now I have this 30 round magazine because it was such a huge deal in California. If you remember Freedom Week, for 7 days, we could purchase them. So it's kind of been eye opening living in another state and looking back in California and really realizing what could happen to other states. Sometimes things that happen in California or other states tend to bleed into other states. And I just don't want to see that happen. So that's why I have been pretty good about vetting anyone who I'm going to vote for in my new state.
Yeah. That's so has anybody in did you say it was North Carolina?
Mhm.
Has anybody there expressed concern when they found out that you were from California?
I kind of joke I need a T-shirt made, like we're the good Californians moving here, I promise. But
Yeah.
I feel like when I would say we're from California and they would shoot me a look, I would have to explain. Oh, and by the way, I'm gonna get certified for concealed carry to teach, and I'm also a firearms instructor. And then they're kind of like, okay, you seem like you came here for the right reasons.
How long have you been a firearm?
I know I'm biased too when I hear people
Yeah.
come from California and New York. I'm kind of like, did you come for the same reasons we came here? And there's only been one person I've met in our neighborhood that fled New York and they're going to vote the same way. And in my head, I'm just like, why? Why would you do that? You up and left your state and now you're going to vote to
Hmm.
make the same mistakes here. So always got to be one.
Were you working at the California Rifle and Pistol Association offices during 16 and 17 by chance?
2017. So it was
Okay.
right after Gunmageddon.
I think I might have given you my check one time.
I think so. Yeah, I think you're right.
That's funny. Um, yeah, it's huge. Is there a push out there, or can you tell to start doing some Californization of North Carolina?
It's
What do you think?
definitely different. Like, I feel like the sheriff's department here is very pro Second Amendment. So we do have a Democrat as governor, and all the state senators, they push forward legislations to try to get the concealed carry permits good for a lifetime. So how awesome
Mhm.
would that be, instead of 5 years, but the governor vetoed it. So we'll see what happens in 2024. We have Mark Robinson is our lieutenant governor, and I've got a pretty good feeling he's going to run for governor. And he actually started his political career talking about how he was an NRA member at a local city council meeting, and it just blew up. And he was like, how come every time something happens, it always gets laid down at my feet? I'm not responsible for, the bad things that bad people do with their guns. I'm a responsible gun owner. So it's been interesting to follow his career from how it all started.
Mhm. Have you thought about running for office yourself?
I have thought about maybe city council,
Mhm.
start small here in Surf City Council. If I want to throw my hat in, it would be May of next year, and then there's a race in November. So we'll see.
And did you say that you carry a gun?
Yes.
Do you have a gun on you right now?
I mean, they're all over my house, but not on me.
Really? Wow. What type of gun do you carry?
I like the M&P Shield.
Mhm.
I think that's a good size.
When you Do you primarily instruct women in firearms?
For the most part, when I was instructing in Los Angeles, I would say it was almost half and half.
Okay.
Yeah, but out here, starting my business again, I would say it's been mostly geared towards women. But I did just start a pretty cool class. I call it the Sip in the Second, where we go to local coffee shops, and there's like little enclosed areas, little offices, and I have about 8 ladies at a time. And some are experienced and just want to be around other women who also enjoy firearms, and some have never touched a gun, and we go over all the safety, obviously with no live ammunition in the coffee shops. But those have been, I've gotten a lot of good feedback, and we're gonna keep doing those. So it's just funny when I asked the business owners at the coffee shop, like, hey, here's what I'm thinking in my head. I'm like, there's no way they're going to say yes. And within a second, they're like, oh, yeah, we absolutely support the Second Amendment. And I just remember thinking, I am not in California anymore. Like, there's no way I could go to a coffee shop and hold a firearm class. So it's been fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I guess it depends on the coffee shop out here, though. I think there are a couple that I put you in touch with that would be okay with
Oh,
that.
good. Good to hear.
Yeah, I think as long as you're not waving the things around in the coffee place, they might get a little weirded out. So do you bring the blue plastic things? Do you, or
I
what do you what do
have
you?
one blue plastic, and I bring actual firearms, just no live ammunition, all the dummy rounds.
And so you have the firearms out in the coffee shop?
Yeah, but it has a little enclosed area.
Okay.
It's cute. Yeah, little barn doors that shut, and it's pretty private. But I
Wow.
think
What kind of
the good
coffee
thing
shop is
about these
this?
guys,
Sounds pretty nice.
yeah, right. There's two out here that have said yes, but I think sometimes when I am racking the slide, people are probably like, "What was that?"
That's funny. Okay, so you're a semi-auto person. What's the story behind that? Have you ever shot a revolver?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay.
That was actually the first. My first gun I ever purchased was after going to a ranch in well, it was Tombstone, Arizona,
Mhm.
and so I came home and felt like a cowgirl.
And did you not like revolvers, or what's the story
I,
behind that?
yeah, no, I
You
really
do.
like revolvers, but if I'm gonna conceal carry, I'd rather have a semi-automatic on me.
And what's the reason for that primarily for
Because
you?
that could, living in North Carolina, I could definitely hold more rounds,
Okay.
5 or 6 shots.
So capacity is the issue that you're thinking of.
Mhm.
Okay. And you prefer the 9mm to any other
I,
caliber? Is there a
I
reason why
do like 9mm.
you don't like 44? You don't want a 44?
44, maybe a
I'm
40.
kidding. I'm kidding.
Yeah, I could do a 40, but
So how did you pick the 9mm? I'm just curious.
I was doing, there was something for CRPA. Trying to
Yeah.
remember, it was a cool gun shop that was having a big sale. And
Turners?
it wasn't Turner's. It was
Fowler?
around Santa Ana, I want to say.
Santa Ana. Rifle gear?
Rifle Gear. It was Rifle Gear.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. They're still there? It's been a while.
I think they moved locations. I have not been back there in a bit, but I do follow them on Instagram. And they follow me back, by the way, which is kind of cool. Um, I haven't been in there in a while. And I think they had the place they had in 2017-ish during Gunmageddon. I think they moved, I think. I really need to go back over there and say hi to those guys because I had a lot of good times there.
Okay.
Yeah, rifle gear. Yeah, I like rifle gear. There's a lot of good shops. I think the best shop in California was Gunfighter Tactical in Miramar. Did you ever go down there?
I didn't. No. I
They had
like,
closed down the office that I liked for a while, and I think they reopened recently.
okay.
So,
I highly recommend Bolsa Gunsmithing in Westminster, pretty close to Huntington Beach, and then Rifle Supply.
oh yeah, Rifle Supply too. Yeah, I love Rifle Supply.
In
Tristan follows
LA.
me. Tristan from Rifle Supply follows me on Instagram. I've talked to him several times.
Um,
Yeah, they're good people too. So Heather, do you want to tell us about your firearms training
well,
and
I
what?
just got certified. Well, let's see. I started off as NRA basic pistol instructor. So that was in 2018, and that was a busy time, especially in 2020. I felt like everyone and their moms were trying to get a lesson, which is a good thing. If there's so many millions of new gun owners, I was glad to see they were all investing in training as well. And then about a week ago, I got certified to teach concealed carry. So now I'm just waiting on my paperwork from Raleigh, the North Carolina Department of Justice. So I'm
Hmm.
excited for that. Yeah, it seems like all the new neighbors are like, as soon as you get certified, you let me know. And glad I've got some clients lined up already.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
What are you going to call it, or what are you calling it? I
I
think I
call
already know, but huh?
Yeah, it's high
Yep.
caliber firearms training and education. I added the education part as well.
How are you spelling high? Is it High?
It is. Yeah.
That's what I thought. Um, let's say somebody's listening to this, Heather, in the future, and they want to know just how crazy you are. I mean, because she carries a gun. Um, I don't think you're crazy, but some people
I'll
might think
go out
that.
there. Yeah.
What would you say to people that think you're crazy for wanting to carry a gun?
I would say, I mean, just look around, just know that I know there's so many good police officers out there, but so many times you'll see, sometimes even if you do call police, there are times where it's either going to take a really long time for them to get to you, or once they do get to you, they don't help you. So you truly are your own first responder. I know, I don't know if you followed Top Shot Chris. He won the reality show Top Shot, and he lives in San Francisco. and I think it was maybe a year and a half ago or so. It was all captured on his Ring app, where I think it was two or three maybe homeless people were trying to break into his house. He called the police. They never showed. They finally, he obviously knew how to handle a firearm. He didn't have to use it. I think they did eventually leave his premises, but he had to drive to the San Francisco Police Department the next day to file a report because no one ever showed. So when I kind of point out to people like, well, anything were to happen, someone tried to break into your house, what would you do? And they always say, well, like, oh, I would call the police. Or sometimes they say like, well, I would grab a knife or a bat. And I don't think they realize like if someone did break in, like how close you would have to be to someone to hit them with a bat or, do something with a knife. But so many times even just brandishing a firearm, or if they hear a shotgun being pumped, like bad guys are gonna take off. So that's pretty much how I explain it.
So the deterrent effect in most cases is pretty powerful, just displaying the firearm.
I would say so. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
sometimes I did a women's event and I was the only firearms table. It was all kind of like makeup and like soaps and things like that. And I had there was multiple conversations that went along the lines of, I don't need a gun because I don't put that energy out there. And it was more
Wow.
than one person who said this. And I was thinking, like, what does that even mean? Like, oh, well, I don't put that energy out there. So I don't have to worry about things like that. And maybe because it was Southern California, but I should have asked them, like, would you wear a seatbelt? Like, or do you just not put that energy for car accidents out there?
Whoa.
It was interesting. You
Hmm.
can't really, it was, how do you really argue if people truly feel like that? Yeah.
That's interesting. It's really sad to hear that.
Yeah.
The reason I'm saying that is because it's sad that those people that are saying that think that that's why crime is committed, is because the victim put energy out
Wrong
there.
energy. Yeah.
That's a really weird way to look at victims of crime.
I,
I don't think that people realize that anybody can become a victim.
yeah.
And you think you might, if you think you're impervious to becoming a victim of crime, then what makes you think that other people who are victims, why did they become a victim?
Yeah.
Is there some kind of victim blaming going on here? Because you might find yourself a victim or being victimized, and then it's at that time it's too late
Right.
for you to change your view.
Right.
Have-
And so many times in when I was working in Los Angeles, one of the hardest parts of the job was I would have women say, I was just accosted by a crazy person walking on the street with my 4-year-old at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. How do I get a concealed carry permit? So it seemed like something had happened to them prior instead of like, oh, I think I'll just learn how to use a firearm today. Like something had happened. But then it was pretty terrible because at that point I would have to tell them, well, you have a 0.002% success rate to get a concealed carry permit in Los Angeles. And even now, if the numbers bumped up a little bit, it's still going to take, I'd say, at least over a year, cost you over $500. So that was the tough part of the job, being the bearer of bad news. And yeah, but then it was a good way to say, if you don't agree with this, you got to vote for your sheriff, because I think not just in California, but all over, it's like 8% of the population actually go out and vote for their sheriff, which I learned that from the California Rifle Pistol Association too. So if you're not happy with something, you can't just complain. You got to vote and make a difference.
How did you find out about CRPA? So, I mean, in the first instance.
It was a good friend of mine that I've known since kindergarten. His name's Shane Brady, and his brother Sean, I knew was a lawyer for the NRA. And I just knew I kind of wanted to get involved. Um, Sounded like a cool job just being involved with Second Amendment issues. And then they pointed me towards California Rifle Pistol Association. So it all worked out.
So you weren't, it's not like you were a member for years and years and
I
then.
didn't know about it in 2017.
Hmm.
I definitely knew about the NRA, but I didn't know California kind of had its own NRA at that point.
So did you have a concealed carry permit when you were in California?
Yes, I did.
Really? What did you use for your good cause? Do you mind if I ask?
So if you have a family member, even if I think it's like an in-law, it doesn't have to be your husband or whatever, in law enforcement, I think that goes a long way. But I know other people could also use, especially in Orange County, you said you feared for your safety because you went hiking and there was mountain lions. You could use that as a good cause. But after the Supreme Court, people were like, do I even need one? And I said, no, you could just say for your good cause, C. Bruin versus New York Rifle Pistol Association. So that's a good feeling.
Right. Right. Did you have a concealed carry permit in LA County or
It was Orange County.
Orange County?
Yeah. And there was times where I really tried not to make classes in Inglewood, like past a certain time, like at night. And sometimes I would, come in for clients who had to work and could meet me like, I think we closed at like 10 o'clock at night. And I'd be walking through this alley thinking to myself, like, thank God I live in Orange County and have a sheriff who approved a concealed carry, because I would felt terrible if I was unarmed, walking by myself through this alley.
Mm.
In the,
You mentioned Inglewood. Were you shooting at LAX over there?
Yeah.
LAX.
Mm-hmm.
So you were shooting at the airport. No, just kidding.
Yeah.
No, LAX is the name of that was a funny joke. I could not wait for that. LAX ammo is the name of a ammo supply, and they also have a shooting range over there in Inglewood. Been there many times myself. Did you do you have any views about so was it Hutchins that gave you your concealed carry?
I think it was Barnes.
Barnes. Oh yeah.
Yeah, Hutchins. Yeah. She did come into the CRPA and I got to meet her in person. So that was really cool. And I got to say, because she really was the one that changed, she started approving way more citizens.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. So it was good to tell her in person, thank you for doing that. And then I was so sad to see she passed away a few years ago. So I was really glad I got to meet her that one day.
Yeah. Yeah, I've met Barnes and talked to him at length, and on a, he told me that he was the one. He was the one in charge of the CCW program for a while.
Oh, okay.
So he learned about it from the inside, the process, and I think he developed an appreciation for the process. Of course, as you referenced, Heather, in case anybody is missing some of the nuance or the subtlety of what you said that you could put that you're afraid of mountain lions as a good cause statement. For everybody listening, if you're from America, it used to be not too long ago, this past year, that even in the great county of Orange, with someone like Don Barnes in charge, he was bound by a California statute that insists that they use a good cause standard similar to the one that was struck down in New York in June by the Supreme Court. And that meant that people like Heather and other people might be walking in it's kind of a sketchy area. And I know the sketchy areas you're talking about over there in LA, Inglewood area. There's a lot of good people that live there. Nothing against them. It's just, for one reason or another, you might have a woman's intuition that you're in danger, and it might be correctly calibrated and it's working right, that intuition, and you can't put that down. You couldn't put that down as a good cause. You could not put that down that I want to be safe in a dangerous area for self-defense. That was not considered a good cause. I feel like I need to keep repeating that over and over again. Self-defense was not considered a good cause.
Right.
At the same time, at the same time, self-defense against a possible mountain lion attack was considered the preeminent type of possible good cause to give you that. So a situation you might be in once in your life, maybe, probably never, but maybe in the mountains, which you're hardly ever there, but sometimes you go there. And that was considered a good cause for you to have a firearm pretty much everywhere,
Right.
including the grocery store and that dangerous neighborhood in Inglewood.
Right.
So you could have the the permit, so you're not a felon in Inglewood for self-defense because you said you were afraid of mountain lions. But if you had put that you let's say you had put that you want self-defense in Inglewood against humans, which are far more dangerous than mountain lions, uh, uh, that would not be a good cause for you when you're hiking and get attacked by a mountain lion.
Yeah. You bring up a good point. A lot of gun restrictions make zero sense.
Have you always been able to see that for yourself?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. I think all you have to do is look at politicians,
Yeah.
and I'll say it till I'm blue in the face so many times over and over again, that all these politicians who are anti-gun, who want to disarm law-abiding Americans, take away their standard capacity magazines and like
Hmm.
make sure they have certain types of guns. They're all protected by taxpayer-funded private armed security, whether it be Capitol Police or whatnot. So it always comes down to guns for thee, not for me. Sorry,
Yeah.
other way around. Guns for the politicians, not for me. But
Right.
yeah,
Right. Yeah, that bothers me. Well, good for you for always being able to see through it. So you mean from the time you were a kid, you were just like dialed in with common sense on stuff? Because why does it take so long for people, Heather? Why do you think it's so long for people to see through this stuff?
I don't know. Maybe if you have a certain type of person who goes with what they believe when they watch it on television,
Hmm.
so much of it is fed through social media,
Hmm.
and they just see it and believe it. But it, especially after 2020, I don't know how people can believe what they see. But there's a lot of people out there who don't think critically.
Yeah,
Unfortunate.
that's right. Um, now, if someone's listening to this in the future, let's say it's a female, and
Mhm.
she's listening to you, and she thinks, that sounds like a girly girl to me. That's a little too deep of a voice. It sounds like a girly girl to me, and she's encouraged by the fact that you want to be empowered with a firearm, but she's not feeling the confidence that you have, and she's thinking, I don't know how this Heather girl got the confidence that she has. What would you say to somebody like that about confidence?
I've had pretty many women start, and they're just shaking.
Mm-hmm.
I've had some women where they're like tears are coming down their face, and we
Yeah.
start, and by the end of our lesson, they're like, "Oh my gosh, that was so fun! When can we do this again?" So that's
Wow.
really great to see. I think it's just maybe because I am a woman that I'm not like this big military guy in 5'11, like screaming at you, like, oh, no, like you're doing it wrong. Like, I'm pretty good at saying, like, okay, like, I know this is your first time. Maybe we'll start with something smaller caliber. If like the woman, for instance, who was really shaking, it's like, okay, let's start with a 22 here
Mm,
and maybe work our way up to a 9mm. But just reminding them that firearms are inanimate objects. You're in control. You have to squeeze the trigger for it to fire. Before we do any of that, I have them practice with the dummy round. Just now the gun is hot. And this is how you unload it and make sure that it, you're clear and safe. And I would always tell them to, even if they're not hitting the bullseye, just the more you practice, the more comfortable you'll be. So that seems to go a long way.
So you think it's just a matter of practice and kind of willpower to just kind of will yourself to that first class or whatever?
Yeah, especially after you fire that first round, because they don't know what to expect and they're thinking, it's going to be like this huge explosion and this huge kickback. So I think just shooting off at least that first round, they'll become more comfortable slight bit after that.
What kind of fee can people expect to be charged for good training? Round.
More now that ammunition gone up drastically, but
Yeah.
I tell people for about $100, it would be about an hour with a private session, their or friends or family or whatever, and then we go about an hour on the range. If they want me to buy the ammunition, I can buy the ammunition for them, but obviously it would just cost a little bit more.
How much ammunition should people have?
As much as they possibly can get
Oh,
their
wow.
hands on. So,
Okay.
going to the range, I say, like 50 rounds is good to practice once a month. I'd suggest that. But to have on hand, you could have like 1,000 rounds. You're in pretty good shape just to have at your house.
1,000 rounds. Wow. How people are probably thinking, some people are thinking, that's an arsenal. What do you how do you respond to that?
Some people are like, 1,000 rounds. I got that in my kitchen.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we both know people that 1,000 rounds is like they can shoot that before breakfast, and yeah, it goes fast.
Mm-hmm.
I always say, if you buy in bulk, that's primarily why someone would buy 1,000 rounds, is because they're buying in bulk and it's cheaper. Sometimes it's a lot cheaper.
Yeah, if you can't buy in bulk, just maybe like once a month buy a
Yeah.
box, buy 200. And
Where do you get your ammo?
I like going to the gun shows.
Mm-hmm.
And here in North Carolina, I just went to my first one. It was a lot of fun. And just talking to there's quite a few local gun shops. But now that I live in North Carolina, I can actually have it delivered to my house, which was something I was not afforded in California. So the first time it came and it was on my doorstep, I was like, woohoo! Thank you,
No big
Phoenix
deal.
Ammo. Yeah.
Isn't it interesting? Just like you were saying about the magazine that you bought,
Right.
30 round magazine. It's no big deal. It's not like people are looking at you like, why does she need more than 11 rounds? I don't understand. She must be a bad person.
Mhm.
But no, it's just normal. It's normal America.
Right.
Hello, it's normal America. But in California, you've been conditioned to, I think they want to condition you to think arbitrarily about right and wrong. In other words, right and wrong shouldn't be arbitrary.
Right.
Right and wrong is a serious deal. If right and wrong does really exist, and I think you and me both know that it does, it's not a matter of arbitrary standard. It's not like the difference between 11 rounds and 10 rounds.
Right. And you see what's happening in California as of July 1st. I feel like they're just trying to get rid of gun culture, especially when it comes to, teaching kids about firearms. I'm pretty sure if I was still in California, I would have gotten fined $25,000 because on my website I have kids or minors
Oh,
shooting.
wow.
And so I think like Rifle Supply was saying, I don't even think they can have, youth-sized Rifle Supply T-shirts because the governor is so hell-bent on not having kids even know what firearms are, just like conditioned, like you said, to think, oh, firearms are bad. But CRPA is really hitting back pretty hard. I can't remember if they already filed the lawsuit or if they're just about to file a lawsuit for that.
That doesn't surprise me. I think Chuck mentioned something like that on the last time I had him on.
Yeah, if you've ever shot at Rahagis in
Oh yeah.
Corona.
Yeah.
So every year I would take my daughter to a big, it was like youth shooting day.
Mhm.
And this past July, they had already like printed the tickets and everything,
Mhm.
but the event happened, I think it was like mid-July, and they were so scared that they might get fined, they wouldn't even let the kids hold the tickets. So like the parents had to hold the tickets, and then the kids could do archery, but they took away all of the shooting sports. But because the ticket said like, Rahagi's youth shooting day, is just so stupid.
Hmm. Why do you think they're going after youth like that here?
I think it is to try to end the culture. It's not even just
Yeah.
like self defense or anything like that. It's just like they don't want youth growing up even knowing, oh, you know, I can have a firearm to defend myself. So
Hmm.
it's unfortunate, but
Right.
that's
Right.
why it's good to have the organizations.
So in other words, the culture is a way to bring knowledge to kids, and so that when they're an adult, they have knowledge,
Right.
and
And
so
you
they're trying to prevent
juxtapose that
knowledge.
exactly with a new law just passed 30 members of the Senate in Arizona. I think it's
Mm.
2448 House bill. And it's going to mandate, I think it's from sixth grade to 12th grade, that they will get, it's just a lesson on firearm safety. So there's no instruction whatsoever. And if the parent wants them to opt out and not learn about it, they can opt out. But it's basically, it's based on the NRA's like Eddie Eagle program, where
Huh.
like I would do this for free in North Carolina, go to these classrooms and teach kids, if you see it, you don't touch it, you run away, you tell a grown up. And then maybe we would see some of these accidents, the numbers fall. So I think it's great what they're doing in Arizona.
I think it'd be great to have firearms go a step further and say, like sex education, have firearms education, and you can opt out. It's fine, but give people a chance who don't grow up in a gun house to have the knowledge, and you know, again, then have it culminate in a shooting experience when they're seniors and they're 18.
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, I'm just thinking, and you're old enough to join the military. Why not? It
right.
makes sense to me. And
Yeah.
not to mention, that's something you could do for a living, like what many
Mhm.
firearms instructors do. It's something that people can make a living at, or it's part of that, law enforcement, or private security or something like that.
Yeah, there were some lessons I would teach. The parent said, I specifically called you because you had kids on your website. And I used to swim, but I didn't want to teach my daughter. Like, I'll let someone else teach her. So it's not coming from her mom and stuff. So I totally get that if
Hmm.
they want their kid to learn from someone who's taken the NRA classes and is certified. So, I completely understand. But for California to basically take that away, it just doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, it makes sense if you want to prevent people from having knowledge.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense, I guess. But they're not really that smart, I don't think. They dominate the campuses in California, unfortunately, and there's a lot of grade inflation and ignorance as a result. In fact, everywhere that Democrats control education, um, there's a movement to reduce the importance of taking logic. I've noticed, um,
Yeah.
like a lot of the homeschooling folks that I know, they're not Democrat. They always insist on logic and classical education. And there's a few schools that still require logic, but not very many. And it's really sad to me.
Some of my
Just
favorite phone calls I would get with the CRPA would be, it was always a young girl for the most part. And I imagine either like late high school, early college, and they call and they say, how can you support semi-automatic weapons? And I'd say, first of all, can you tell me what the word semi-automatic means? And they'd
Mhm.
all say, no. And so then I would tell them, like, let me get this straight. Like, you want to ban something and you can't tell me what it is. And I would always be really nice to these people and like really try to explain like why the Second Amendment is so important. And it was good conversations, but it's just funny that you mentioned the students because it was always a student who would call.
Wow. So you were their professor at that moment.
Yeah,
How'd that feel for you?
it felt good. Yeah.
That's a very good way to handle that. That's very, and you'd be a very good professor. You should be a professor. Well, I guess you kind of are. You're a firearms instructor. So,
Yeah.
how many types of guns do you bring for firearms instructing? Do you just focus on one caliber?
It's interesting when I just got certified to teach concealed carry, they make you bring both a semi automatic and a revolver.
Hmm.
So even if people don't really carry too much, revolvers for the most part, they're like, nope, you got to teach them all about revolvers. And I have no problem with that. But
Who's they? When you say they make you,
the
is it the
Department of Justice for North Carolina.
okay?
Yeah. But for classes, I would typically bring a Glock 19. It's a 9 millimeter, but Glocks are good because there's not a whole lot of bells and whistles to them.
Mm-hmm.
You have that tiny little trigger safety, and that's it.
Yeah.
So when you look at it, it's not overwhelming.
Mm-hmm. Plus, Tommy Lee Jones had one in The Fugitive. I just
Oh,
wanted to
okay.
add to that, which is, I think, the first time I really looked at a Glock. I was like, I remember I was seeing it in the film, and I was like, that looks like a pretty cool gun, actually. So,
When you
yeah.
watch movies, after you like, you're
Yeah.
pretty knowledgeable in
Mhm.
firearms, do you point things out? You're like, oh, that would never happen in real life,
All
or
the time.
yeah, it's pretty.
My wife is constantly poor thing. Yeah. It depends on her mood, but like sometimes she enjoys it and sometimes she just kind of sighs and says, "Okay, all right. I got it."
Speaking of
Yeah.
movies, do you think anything will happen with Alec Baldwin? It's been almost 1 year since it's happened.
Well, I don't know. That's a good question. I haven't really followed the details of that case, except that you might know more about the details than I know that he was claiming that he didn't pull the trigger. Does that
Right. And it took
sound right?
the FBI 10 months to figure out, no, you can't fire a gun without squeezing the trigger. Good job, FBI. But we can leave
Yeah,
us for. But,
yeah.
it's
I
just
don't
it
know if it was that
mindset.
particular firearm that they were testing or something, if there was something about that specific thing, but
Oh,
yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I guess he hasn't maybe a pretty good lawyer and maybe he lawyered up really fast and they circled the wagons. As far as punishment goes, I don't know. Um, my
yeah.
guess is there's going to be a fallout from that that's beyond legal punishment. There's going to be lawsuits and there's going to be a cultural issue there. There's going to be a credibility issue, I think, for him, which is actually, I think,
Mm-hmm.
far more devastating for people in that industry than legal
What I
punishment.
can't get over is where else in life can someone,
Yeah, I know.
point a gun at
It's
someone
not
and
fair.
shoot them and nothing happens. So
It's not
not
fair, is
even
it?
to the right, the young woman who was in charge of making sure it was not loaded. Like nothing's happened to her either.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me.
And it's not that he is getting off the hook like that because he's just been so nice and generous on Twitter to everybody who he disagrees with. That's so
Right?
it's that compounds the issue there. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
in movies and stuff, oftentimes the character, I don't know if it's whoever it is, when they raise the gun, it always makes a noise, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
And so one of the things I'm constantly saying is that's not what it sounds like. It sounds
right.
like this.
If you just hold it, it
This is
doesn't
what
make
it sounds like. Nothing. There's nothing. There's no noise.
yeah.
And or I'll say something like, "Oh, so you're just now racking the slide." I got, oh,
Mhm.
yeah, because it
I
wasn't
do
important 2
that.
seconds ago.
Right. In my lesson, I'll say, if you rack the slide correctly, you will hear the cliche movie noise, like the ch
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of laugh. Oh, okay, I know that noise.
Or if it's a pump shotgun, they're, he's pointing it at the guy, and then, after he gets really angry, he decides to pump it and put a shell in there.
That's what. Yeah.
It's it's just uh, that kind of ignorance already exists,
Right.
and there is a gun culture, and oftentimes there's a firearms expert allegedly on the set somewhere, and that still happens.
Right.
So can you imagine if they get their way with the youth thing?
Yeah.
And I mean, you're going to have some really dumb people walking around. I mean, it's going to be like England. I mean, those people don't know anything
Right.
about firearms. And yeah, so so keeping the gun culture alive and healthy it's a big deal for me. I think it's for you too, right?
It is. It really is. Yeah. That's why I teach my daughter, and I get excited when her friends want to come shoot with us. That's,
Oh, that's cool. How many kids do you
yeah.
have?
I just have one. She's gonna be 14 next month.
14, and she's shooting guns already? How lucky is she?
Oh
How
yeah,
cool.
yeah, yeah. I'm doing this thing where I'm trying to shoot a gun in every state, and I took her
Oh,
with me to Wyoming. We went to Jackson Hole, and we were out there, and she outshot me. I was like, wait a minute,
oh, cool.
give me that gun. I need to yeah, save a little face here and shoot again. But
What is she like? Did she start off on a 22, or what did she start off on?
she did with the 22 rifle. Her favorite gun is a Springfield XD 9 millimeter. That's
Hmm.
her favorite gun.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
And she's so does she like rifles at all?
She does. Yeah,
Yeah.
she kind of likes it all.
What about shotguns? Do you think that
That's what I
kid
was gonna say. Maybe that's one thing. You know, she did shoot. Technically, she shot it at the Rahagi's youth shooting day.
okay.
I think it was like a kind of bigger guy that was helping her, and he goes, "When I say bang, you pull the trigger." And they were shooting the clays and stuff. So
Oh
she
yeah, yeah.
technically, I don't think she had it up on her shoulder or anything like that, but she pulled the trigger and got to see how that felt.
One of the things I like about Rahagis is that well, first of all, in the summer it's not. I don't think it's as fun because it's hot. But like we went a few weeks ago, actually maybe less than that actually, and we went on a Saturday morning, and we got there at 8. Rookie mistake, I guess, because they were lining up at 5:30.
Oh my
Okay, during the
goodness.
summer,
Jeez.
and you get a bay. It's an outdoor range in Corona. Is it in Corona? You
It
think
is.
it's in
Corona.
Corona, which is a Riverside County. Also a very good sheriff in Riverside, Chad Bianco.
Yeah.
Um,
I like the previous one as well. Remember,
what was the previous one's name? Do you remember?
started with an S. It was like not
Oh, we could
Sneak.
look it up.
Yeah, but I mean, Riverside, they had like no bad candidate. It was going to be a
Oh,
good
that's good.
race. Whoever won. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say you rent a bay, and a bay is basically kind of like a dugout of a space where you're kind of enclosed by dirt and from other shooters, and so you can back your truck or whatever your car and bicycle, whatever you're riding that day, and you can shoot shotguns and throw the milk jug out there and shoot the milk jug and with a shotgun, and that's nice. So you don't always have to shoot clays when you have the shotgun. So I like it. I like that time. Um, well, we really have enjoyed getting to know you a little bit, Heather.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a fun conversation.
Yeah. So, is there anything else you want to talk about or you want to mention? Is there any other issue, any law that bothers you that you want to get off your chest? Any,
I think with midterms coming up, it
yeah.
is a good idea just to really research people running for every position in, I think 2020 showed us like how important local elections are, not just statewide and national, but just really vetting anyone who's running. And if you do have an issue like I do with Second Amendment, just trying
How
to
do you,
contact them and asking them what they
okay.
feel, what their position is, and
And
hope if it aligns.
do you actually do that? Do you call them up and talk to them?
Yeah, anytime we've got HR 1808 on the docket in
Mhm,
Congress. I think it's at now. Maybe
mhm.
it passed Congress and now it's in the Senate. But I've been calling all my senators, state senators, and I did get a couple phone calls back. And one was from the aide, and she's like, "Oh, when you mentioned you were from California, we got a little scared, but then she was happy that I said, thank you so much for voting against this terrible bill." But she said even in North Carolina, people from California would call and say, like, how dare you vote against this? Which I was kind of surprised people would call from out of state to other state senators. But
Well, those are the people that don't know what semi-auto means.
right, they are. That's so
So
true. But
they
yeah,
think they're making a difference, but really they're just showing their own ignorance.
yeah,
Yeah, unfortunately, that you're talking about the assault weapon bill, right? The
yeah,
so-called assault weapon.
yeah. It's right. It's the assault weapon ban
Yeah,
in
it passed the House of Representatives and it's now in the Senate.
the
So
Senate.
we'll see what happens.
Right. But it
Yeah,
would basically make California laws all over America. We do
right.
not want to see that happen. So,
Yeah, I think I haven't read it exactly. I don't know exactly how they. I'm saving reading the pain of reading it because they typically have some kind of conference where they work out differences, and it's not always the final bill. But hopefully it doesn't. It just dies because it's a bad idea. But as you know, it'll be back. If even if it dies, it'll be back. It's like one of those horror monsters that comes back alive, out of the swamp. And so it'll be back next year probably, or the year after. And it's never ending work,
it
the
is.
work we're doing.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm doing the podcast, to try to kind of showcase people's knowledge and their confidence and say, hey, Second Amendment people look like this and they talk like this, like Heather, and they're normal people. You sound pretty normal. I mean, you did have that one comment about 1,000 rounds in the kitchen, but other than that, I'm looking behind you. So I'm for those of you not watching on YouTube, she's got really nice background there in her house, and she's got this nice pillow on the couch and flowers. and so I'm,
Flowers. Yeah.
and so I'm wondering, is there ammo under behind that that pillow? But yeah, so it's, in other words, you, to me, tell me if I'm wrong here, Heather, just, you want to be able to not be killed by some psycho and have to wait for the police.
Yep.
That doesn't
Defend
sound
myself
irrational to
or
me.
those I love or strangers. Yep. You you nailed it. And it goes back to 1776. I think the second protects the First Amendment,
Mhm.
and
And
uh,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it all works together
it
because we're
does.
doing First Amendment stuff right now. And the Fourth Amendment definitely protects the Second Amendment because
Yep.
that's prohibits unreasonable searches and seizures. But if you have ignorant people about firearms, then they might think that something is a reasonable search when it's not,
Right.
because they're just afraid. They're irrationally afraid.
Mhm. Shall not be infringed.
Shall not be infringed. Speaking of assault weapons, I hope you don't mind my asking, do you have some kind of special concern about assault weapons?
A special concern? No.
Yeah.
Have you ever shot an automatic
Fully
rifle?
automatic, you mean?
Fully. Mhm.
Yes, I have.
Yeah, it's
It's
pretty
been a
fun.
long time, but yeah.
Yeah, it was a good time. I went to Colorado and got to shoot there, and it was a really fun, expensive 20 seconds.
Yes, it's very expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure if I would want one for home defense because I live in an area that has, well, it's Orange County and I have neighbors, and I don't know if proper shot placement is very easy with that because you have to really be concerned about background and who's behind. You have to think about a lot of stuff in
Right.
self-defense. Does that ever intimidate you?
No, but when you bring that up, I do mention I think it's a good idea to always have hollow point rounds for home protection, especially if you live in, big apartment complex, bad guy breaks in. If you miss, that hollow point isn't going to keep going through all the rooms, it's going to get spread out. So I think that's kind of important, something I teach in the classes. Maybe they wouldn't know otherwise.
Do you think that a woman could defend herself with a 22?
Yes, I know some places, it may have been Riverside, that did not allow 22s to be on your concealed carry permit because they considered it like a non-lethal round. But no, I think a 22, you could do damage with a 22.
Yeah, I think it's definitely lethal. I think I know what you're talking about. I think it's a California law that I think they specified 380 is the lowest because I think the rationale is they want fewer rounds flying around. And if you have a real threat, they want, just get it done.
Yeah,
Get
I
it
think
done.
22 is the only round that will travel through your bloodstream. Have you heard that?
Oh, wow. That's pretty dangerous. That sounds pretty bad to me.
Would not
I
want
wouldn't want, yeah. I mean, I actually really like 22s.
that.
Like, I really like them. I
Yeah,
like them for training. I really like them with ammo prices.
yeah. I was just gonna say, cheapest ammo you can get is a 22.
Do you have a 22 pistol?
We do. Yeah, I do have one.
What do you have?
Who makes that one? It's an old gun.
God bless you. Love old guns. Is it
Yeah,
a
it's old wooden
is it a
handle.
pistol? Like, is it a semi-auto?
It is semi-automatic 22.
Is it a Ruger?
No,
Ruger Mark, or is it a Colt Woodsman or
I
um,
have to get back to you on this. It's not a
Smith and
long
Wesson?
22. It's like it's just an old.
Buckmark?
Yeah, I'll
Browning
send you a
Buckmark?
picture. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm interested. I'm just shooting the bull here, people. I love talking about guns. I could talk about them all day. But Heather, yeah, thanks for carving out some time in your day
Of course.
and you know, we love having you on, and thanks for sharing your passion and your insight.
Thanks. Well, thanks for having. Thanks. Keep up the good work and have a good,
Thank
nice
you.
long weekend, Labor Day
Oh,
weekend.
okay. Do you have a website that you want
I do.
people?
It's still highcaliberoc.com. And then I pretty much transitioned everything else to like on Instagram, it's high caliber NC. So one of these days I'll figure out how to make my website North Carolina as well.
So it's at High Caliber NC on Instagram,
Yep.
and it's highcaliberoc.com for
That's
your
right.
website.
Right.
And that's how people can get a hold of you
Yep.
if they want to talk to you. Okay, cool. Thanks so much, Heather. Appreciate it.